Welcome into the Birds of the Roundtable. We are coming to you for the first time this season, and it is not a Victory Tuesday. That's right, the Eagles' 6-week winning streak was broken by the most dreadful of opponents. It was the bye week who rained on the Eagles' parade this week. Tap the brakes. I had the stat that came out last week that the Eagles led the NFL in wins per week at 1.0, and that's just no longer true. So we're going to try to do our best to podcast through that pain tonight of not coming off of an Eagles win, but we've still got one we can talk about, the victory over the Cowboys. We'll get into a preview of the Steelers game. We'll have a Madden simulation running in the background for you guys. So be sure you drop us some comments here tonight. Let us know what you guys think about the Eagles, how you coped with the bye week, all of those things. But before we get into that, let me welcome to the show one of our co-hosts here. It is Dives. Follow him on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Dives, how are you doing this evening?
Doing okay, man. We had a cold run through our family over the last week or so. So the bye week couldn't have picked a better week. And that on top of everything the Phillies' miraculous run is going down right now. But I'm excited to talk about a second half of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Steelers matchup. I've got 4 matchups to break down. Let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. And we are also joined tonight by Ryan Finneran. Ryan, how are you doing this evening?
Doing very well, thank you. I'm always excited to be on with you guys. I think I say that every time I come on, but you guys are awesome, very knowledgeable. I'm ready. Let's get it.
All right, let's dive into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start rolling our Madden sim of the Eagles-Steelers game here. Don't let that throw you off, though. We're going to briefly recap through the Cowboys game. We did not get an opportunity to do that last week. We took a bye week as well on Tuesday night. So the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, they defeated the Cowboys 26-17 to move to 6-0 and be in the lone undefeated team, the lone first place team in the NFC East. Wasn't always the prettiest game. It certainly started to look shaky in the third quarter, but then, as the Eagles tend to do, they went on one of their 8-minute kill the clock. The game gets dire. We go drive down the field and basically kill the rest of the game. And so they get out of the game with a win. They send Cooper Rush back to the bench with his first loss of the season. Dives, give me one of your main takeaways from the Eagles' victory over the Cowboys.
It's got to be the takeaways, right? Cooper Rush had 3 interceptions. I think they had a turnover on downs, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since the Eagles played. It feels like it. But for me, going back to last year, the year before, this team did not get it done when it comes to takeaways. This team right now is number 1 in takeaways, and it's a test. There's a lot of positives of this team, and we're going to break it down more specifically, more individually as the show progresses. But that's my biggest memory of Eagles versus Cowboys is Darius Slay, James Bradbury, the Eagles secondary, getting it done on all levels again and again and again. It's amazing how we praise this offensive line. We're really excited about the Eagles' defensive line heading into this year. But the Eagles' cornerback in Darius Slay and James Bradbury are arguably the best duo in the NFL right now. And you could make an argument that they're the best. They're better than any other spot on this Eagles team, man. It's been that good.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only are the Eagles leading the league in takeaways, they simply don't turn the ball over. Jalen Hurts has, I think it's 1 interception this season. He's fumbled, quote-unquote fumbled 3 times. They were all snap exchanges, and the Eagles didn't lose any of them. The Eagles are number 1 in the league in turnover differential at plus 12. Second place is only plus 6. So they've doubled up the next best team when it comes to turnover differential. And we're just not used to seeing defenses force turnovers like that. So that's a big takeaway from the game. Ryan, what about you? What did you see as you watched the Cowboys game unfold? What was your thought process?
So I was, lucky enough to be there. The crowd was amazing. One of the things that I wanted to kind of point out was kind of something you alluded to, was that they were resilient. In the way that during that third quarter, it came out flat. The defense didn't look too great. They were getting kind of not fooled by Cooper Rush, and it was like a fake handoff, and he'd swing around to the opposite side and do a quick dump off to a wide receiver. We were getting beat by that a few times. But like you said, you come back, you have the ball for 8+ minutes in that fourth quarter, you just drain the clock. I mean, that is the marks of a team that knows how to consistently win. And they're showing that they can do that at any level against any team. There would be a lot of people that would say that they haven't really played anybody yet besides maybe Dallas and Minnesota possibly, but I think that this team is very resilient. They showed that in the in the first half of the Jacksonville game as well, when they went down quick 14-0, came back and went into half. I believe it was 20-14 Eagles. So just these things. And one thing that actually shocked me, I don't know if it shocked you guys as much, but and it's not a big thing, but I want to see Jalen Hurts keep getting these rushing touchdowns. I don't know. I was kind of shocked that he didn't have one, but that's pretty much it. The resiliency and the fact that he didn't have a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, the Mark likes to say that Jalen Hurts' anytime touchdown score is basically free money when it comes to gambling, and that one didn't cash last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys. But I think you'll take that one time out of out of this whole season, I guess. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is the Eagles' second half struggles. And so I went and pulled the stats for just the last 3 games. In the last 3 games, the Eagles have entered the fourth quarter with an average lead of 7.6 points, and they've held the ball for 10 minutes and 24 seconds. So they're coming in with over a touchdown lead, and they're giving opposing offenses only 4.5 minutes to try to attempt to come back. And so we can talk about them not scoring points in the second half, and maybe there should be some concerns about how they continue to come out flat in third quarters. In the fourth quarters, they're doing exactly what you want to see them do. They're elite at parking the bus, at getting out of games with the win. And I think that's what sets them apart from some of these other elite teams. And let's be honest, the only other 2 teams that look like they're on a tier 1 Super Bowl contender right now are the Bills and the Chiefs. And both of those teams struggle to run the football against light boxes. The Eagles are running the football against heavy boxes. And so it makes a difference. You get into January, you get into cold weather games outdoors, it does make a difference. And I do think that's the potential edge that the Eagles have over a couple of the heavyweights in the AFC, is just their rushing attack. The multiplicity of ways that they can beat you is what really stands out to me through the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, you talk about like a memory of that Eagles-Cowboys game. It was Jason Kelce just cleating DeMarcus Lawrence on that one run play, I think it was, or it could be a passing play, I don't remember. But I remember that one very well.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything else you guys want to mention about the Cowboys game before we sort of get into the Steelers matchup?
Well, the decline of the NFC, man. It's not really Cowboys related. Well, it's kind of Cowboys related, but here we are sitting after the bye week, and you look at the Giants, you look at the Cowboys, you look at the Eagles, sitting atop of the NFC. Everyone else, it seems like a running theme over these last few weeks, especially, is that these top teams in the NFC have gotten worse and worse and worse, while the Eagles are trending, and the NFC is trending better and better and better. So that's kind of been an ongoing theme, right, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers just lost to the Panthers, who are supposed to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They had their sights set on the number 1 overall pick. Green Bay has lost 3 in a row to Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Taylor Heineke. Like, it's not good. It's not good in the NFC. The 49ers, I think, have the potential to be a good team if they can ever get their defense healthy. It's not going to happen for a while, but they could be a threat come playoff time. I think you could make a legitimate argument that the 3 best teams in the NFC are in the NFC East. You could make an argument about the Vikings. I'm not really impressed by the Vikings. The Eagles already beat them. I think the Cowboys are a better team. The Giants, it feels like the Giants just continue to get lucky. Like they were like a foot away from losing to the Jaguars. I put this stat out on Twitter today, but you look at like the Jaguars and you look at the Giants are 6-1, right? The Jaguars are 2-5. If you look at their point differentials, the Giants are +20 and the Jaguars are +18. And so the Giants are literally just winning every one of these games by razor thin margins, and that's probably not sustainable, but maybe it is. I mean, I think they're here to stay. I think they're going to get in the playoffs this year. I think the NFC East is going to end up with 3 playoff teams.
That's fun, man. We need an Eagles versus Cowboys postseason game. That would just blow the roof off, or no, the lack of roof off Lincoln Financial Field if that were to happen.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I will say I don't want to meet their defense in the first round of the playoffs, though. I'm just saying.
If Lane Johnson does go down in that game, like this is a different narrative right now.
Yeah. So we've got a comment coming in here. It says can only win running. Is that talking about the Eagles? Because that's ridiculous and not even close to true. The Eagles have the number 5 DVOA passing attack. Like Jalen Hurts leads a lot of statistical categories for passing. Don't confuse their ability to run, which other teams lack, with only able to win because they run. That's just not accurate at all. It feels like the whole we're not getting passing touchdowns, so Jalen Hurts isn't good sort of thing. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think like another takeaway is like we already talked about the rushing offense. It's so good, but like how much better has Jalen Hurts improved last year to this year? I mean, obviously there's a lot of football left. Anything can happen in the NFL, but like I think the answer is an overwhelmingly yes. I had Jalen Hurts rated in like the mid-teens area heading into this season. Dude, like his jump is massive. Like I don't even think we're talking top 10 anymore. If this continues, Shane, could we be talking about top 5 quarterback in the NFL? That is insane. That is insane to say. That speaks to the success of Jalen Hurts and, like you said, Shane, especially limiting turnovers, which is a huge part of his game that I've been so impressed with. There are some question marks that I have that we'll talk about, but like it's just a resounding successful season so far for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles offense has the 3rd best drop back EPA in the NFL. So on passing plays, they're the 3rd best offense. They've got the 5th best running EPA. Only 3 quarterbacks in the league have a smaller turnover-worthy play rate. And the Eagles are undefeated. I mean, the offense is humming. There's chinks in the armor with the blitz in the 3rd quarter and all those sorts of things that we'll talk about and we'll break down. But they're playing really well. And if you think about it, like, contract aside, age aside even, what quarterbacks would you take right now over Jalen Hurts? You would take Mahomes, Allen. You would take Lamar, probably. You would take Justin Herbert. I don't know who else you would take over Jalen Hurts right now. If you're talking long-term, maybe Trevor Lawrence, but certainly not for right now. Like, I think you could make an argument that he's pushing into that top 5 quarterback category with how he's playing right now, and he doesn't do it the same way that some of these other quarterbacks do, but there's no denying it works. And so I've been really impressed with them. I won't turn this into a whole what are you going to do with Jalen Hurts thing, because I would still be hesitant to sign him to one of those like 6-7 year contracts with big money, because I do wonder about the sustainability with the hits that he takes and the way that other quarterbacks, other teams that have run this style of offense like the Ravens have transitioned away from it. Will the Eagles be able to sustain it over the long term, and will Hurts stay healthy over the long term? I don't know there, but that's a question for another day probably as we get into the offseason when he becomes eligible for that extension.
Yeah, we're getting some comments here by a Cowboys fan that I could not disagree more with right now. Should we go over them real quick?
Yeah.
We can if you want to give them the light of day, but there's really no.
Yeah,
no
this
point.
is pathetic. Hurts has only 6 passing touchdowns, on track for the same touchdowns last year, with the best wide receivers and the best O-line. 155 passing yards is not humming. Cooper Rush has more passing yards than Jalen Hurts. A guy off the street can outpass your quarterback.
Well, I mean, Cooper Rush threw 3 interceptions in that game, so maybe
And he was 18 for 38.
What are you doing, man? What are you doing, man? Get out of here. Get out of here.
I would call the 4th best offense in points per game and the 3rd best offense in EPA per play. I would say that's a humming offense, but that's just
Jalen Hurts is a huge part of that Eagles rushing attack, man. Get out of here. Get out of here. I also lastly, before we get into the Steelers game, I think a big takeaway here was this first 6 games for the Eagles was the Eagles blitz. What I want to see is that Eagles blitz continue to have success heading into the second half of the year. This is per Johnny Page, one of the best Eagles writers there is, one of my favorites. I look forward to his writings on Bleeding Green Nation. Go check him out. But when the Eagles have 5 or more rushers, they hold quarterbacks to 45% completion percentage, 3.7 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 3 sacks, 29 pressures. That is a pressure on every 2.1 dropbacks. That was something that we didn't see enough of last year. And my goodness, has that, you talk about massive leap forwards. The Eagles, on timely blitzes when they need to, have been extremely successful. They've gotten bit a little bit, 4 touchdowns, but that's what happens. So for me, I'm just been so impressed by the Eagles blitz. And I really want to see Jonathan Gann continue to dial up those, especially on those 3rd downs.
Absolutely. And just the addition of someone like Jordan Davis, just clogging up that middle, it's been very impressive to see. So that's also really great.
Yeah, and the Eagles, they need to get Jordan Davis more involved. They're using him exclusively as a nose tackle in their 5-man fronts. That's got to change, and I hope to see a change there coming out of the bye week. They need to involve him in some of those 4-man fronts, because one of the things you saw Dallas start to do in the second half, people said, well, why isn't Davis playing? It's because every time they put him on the field, Dallas just spread the field out and they threw the ball. So he played 12 snaps in the second half, and Dallas threw the ball on 8 of those 12 snaps, and they went 7 for 8 passing for 79 yards and a touchdown. So the coverage isn't as good out of those 5-man fronts. Those are designed to stop the run, and so they need to get Davis involved in those 4-man fronts. I do think that'll make a big difference, but hopefully that's something that they change coming out of the bye week just a little bit. So if that's my quibble with the defense, that's it right now. That's what I'd like to see.
That's pretty good.
All right, let's get on to the Steelers game here. The Eagles are winning the Madden simulation 9-7 right now. They picked up a safety earlier. I didn't notice who got the safety, but
I didn't even notice that either.
Yeah, so Steelers scored first. The Eagles came back with a safety and then a touchdown. So they are up 9-7 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter, in danger of getting a safety themselves. But let's get into the Steelers game. So the Steelers have made the switch. Kenny Pickett is the starting quarterback. Dives, I think, did you have Pickett as QB1 in this draft? I can't remember.
I did, man. I did. He's one of my stories matchups to watch here, but he was my number 1. Now, to be fair, I did not have him as a first-round pick. I was not very high at all on any of the quarterbacks in last year's draft, including Malik Willis. But yeah, I'm kind of shocked to see him struggle as much as he has.
Yeah. All right. Well, talk to us about Pickett. Talk to us about what you've seen with him and what you sort of expect on Sunday.
Yeah, talk about Cooper Rush having 3 interceptions. So did Kenny Pickett last week. He had 257 yards. He had 3 interceptions. It's been kind of a tough stretch for Pickett so far. You look at kind of, or I think of back during the draft process, and what I loved about Kenny Pickett so much in college was his ability to always keep his eyes downfield and his accuracy out of the pocket, his accuracy on the move while scrambling was he had that wow factor. That was one of his parts of his game that I really, really liked. But look at this, man. 5.8 yards per attempt last week. You look at this Steelers offense. Maybe they're trying to protect him, maybe a little too much, but that Steelers offense is entirely just underneath concepts, quick passes, quick out routes. He had 30 throws under 10 yards, and he had only 5 passes of 20 yards or more last week against the Dolphins. So my matchup here is not Kenny Pickett versus the Eagles. It's Kenny Pickett versus Matt Canada, who is the Steelers' offensive coordinator, who's getting a ton of slack right now, and rightfully so. The Steelers average the second lowest amounts of points per game in the league. Everything I read about this dude is just high, predictable concepts that is just not working. So that's my first matchup is Kenny Pickett versus Matt Canada. I think it's going to be a tough game, Kenny Pickett, especially if what we saw from the previous week continues here against Pittsburgh, because Darius Slay and James Bradbury and the Eagles secondary is coming for him.
Yeah, it really looks like when you put on Steelers film, it really looks like they have like 8 offensive plays. Just super simplistic. Matt Canada, he's been bad. I don't know why he's still the offensive coordinator, but he is. Ryan, what do you make of the Steelers in this offense specifically?
I mean, coming into the year, one of the things that I was thinking was, okay, you lose Ben, who's going to be the quarterback? You draft this kid, Kenny Pickett. I did like him. One of the things that I kind of like, as an outside viewer, you think to yourself, all right, well, it doesn't matter who's the quarterback. You're going to have this new kid, Pickens. You have Claypool. You have Deontay Johnson. It's like, wow, they're going to be good no matter what. But, yeah, I guess it really does matter who's throwing the football, especially if it was Mitch Trubisky or now even Kenny Pickett. But in regards to this upcoming matchup, I feel like this is well-tailored for the Eagles to really show out on defense, kind of increase that turnover number, get to the quarterback. I think this is one of those games where you kind of get back into the swing of things after your bye week and really, start crunching it. So I think that versus Kenny Pickett, our defense is going to kind of thrive. So I think they'll do very well against it.
Yeah, you look at the Steelers' offense. They are ranked 21st in passing DVOA. They're 30th in rushing DVOA. They average 3.7 yards per carry, which is 28th in the league. And so I think it's a good matchup for the Eagles in that if there's a weakness in the defense, it is their run defense. And the Steelers have just struggled, honestly, for years, but they've especially struggled this year to establish any sort of a running game. So it is going to be on Pickett. He's had 3 starts, and one of them he threw 44 passes, and one of them he threw 52. Like they are airing the ball out with Kenny Pickett. And Pickett seems to, he completes a high percentage of his passes because, like Dive said, everything he throws is underneath. On the season, 70% of his passes have been under 10 yards. And when he's gone over 10 yards, it hasn't been pretty. He's 5 of 14 with no touchdowns and 5 interceptions on 20-plus yard passes. So,
wow.
He's not a guy that can push the ball downfield on you, so you can play aggressive underneath. You don't have to respect the running game. It stacks up as a good matchup for the Eagles. Now, I will say that similar to what I said with Cooper Rush, I don't think you blitz Kenny Pickett. His QB rating goes from a 52 to a 116 when he's blitzed. And again, it's the same thing as Rush. Not so much the time to throw, but everything is going to be underneath. It's going to be out quick. So I think, and you saw that with Miami, to be honest. Miami was playing press man coverage. They were playing aggressively, and Pickett drove down the field on them. And then they started to bail out into softer zone coverages. And Pickett was happy to take checkdowns to the detriment of the offense. Like there was one sequence that I think it was 2nd and 4. And he took 2 quick checkdowns to the running back, and they had to punt, throwing the ball twice, 2 completed passes, didn't pick up 2nd and 4. And so he will take those checkdowns to the detriment of the offense. I think it would be wise to just play that soft coverage, give him some looks that rotate after the snap. I wouldn't blitz him. I would just let him sit back there and take his little – I mean, they're running the Big Ben offense, right, with a little more movement. So,
Shane, I couldn't agree more. And just kind of piggybacking off of that, my Steelers offense to Eagles defense matchup to watch is Najee Harris versus TJ Edwards. You kind of like give you some more stats. Najee Harris has only one game this year, averaging over 4 yards per attempt on the ground. The Steelers are fourth worst in rushing first down, seventh worst in rushing yards per attempt. The Steelers, ready for this, Shane? The Steelers do not have a single rushing attempt over 20 yards this season. So they don't hurt you for big chunks. They're sixth worst in rushing yards per game, as I said. And kind of just to give you a comparison, the Eagles, 20 yards or more, have 4. That is 3 by Miles Sanders and 1 by Jalen Hurts. And TJ Edwards hasn't been perfect, but when he's clicking on all cylinders, he is absolutely terrific. He has 55 total tackles, 2 quarterback sacks, 3 passes defense in the 6 games, 3 games of double-digit tackles. I just see the Eagles and TJ Edwards feasting in this one. I really do, and holding them to like third and long situations because of the Steelers' inability to get any kind of rushing positive yards on the ground on those first downs.
All right, Ryan, any other thoughts on the Steelers offense here?
Well, that's actually one of the things I was going to ask you guys was if you're worried at all about Najee Harris, and maybe this could be like one of his breakout games or something along those lines. I don't see it being a breakout game just because our defense has been pretty good, but I was just curious what you guys think. I feel like you guys have all the stats, so I want to take it in, be a sponge.
I don't have any concerns. I'm not a big run defense concern guy for the Eagles. I think, have the Eagles gotten gashed by big yards by running backs? Yes. I think it's more of a Jonathan Gannon concern that I have at times rather than a Najee Harris concern, because if Gannon continues to take his foot off the pedal and play 10 yards off, or not continue that trend of playing Jordan Davis more and all that stuff, I think it's on the Eagles side to have a successful second half of the year. And I don't think I have any reason to be concerned about Najee Harris, not in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the Steelers' rushing attack. I'm sure they will have a better running game than they typically do. And the Eagles' run defense isn't great, but part of that's by design too. They almost exclusively play in nickel personnel.
Exactly.
They're playing light boxes. They're inviting the run. They would, for the most part, they would rather you run the ball than pass the ball, and that you see that league wide too. Just maybe not to the degree that the Eagles do it. So I'm not concerned there. I'm more concerned, honestly, about Kenny Pickett's rushing ability. He's pretty mobile. He does a good job of getting out of the pocket, and he's not the type of quarterback that will hang in the pocket necessarily very often, and so there will be a lot of instances where he's going to look to go make plays with his legs, and that's something that's plagued the Eagles in the past. Now, when they played the Cardinals earlier this year, and Kyler's obviously a much better runner, Kyler didn't really get them. So I'll be interested to see how Gannon approaches that, because against the Cardinals, it looked like their primary concern was making Kyler stay in the pocket. I'm interested to see if they take that same approach with Kenny Pickett.
I'm also excited about George Pickens. Have we talked about George Pickens? Because if you guys have followed us throughout the NFL draft, you would have you know that guy, because we mocked him to our teams about 1,000 times during the draft process. We were big George Pickens people, so I'm excited to see what that dude is all about. He's got 7 plays of 20 yards or more this year. He's by far the biggest big play threat on the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just that he's going up against Darius Slay and James Bradbury, as we said earlier, who have been just ridiculous. Their stats, Slay and Bradbury, are ridiculous. Slay has a passer rating of only 14.6 against him. Bradbury 29. They've only allowed 224 yards, receiving yards against those two total, and 0 touchdowns. Like, that is elite. So as much as I love George Pickens, it's not going to happen this week.
George Pickens, by the way, was my number 22 rated prospect on my board in last draft. I was a big George Pickens in the first round guy, and I knew he wasn't going to go in the first round, but I loved that pickup for the Steelers, and he's really come on since Pickett came in as the starter. Clearly his favorite target. When he attacks downfield, it's just throwing the ball up to Pickens, who more often than not makes a play. Pickens is his favorite target. He lines up almost exclusively out wide. Like I said, runs a lot of vertical routes, very physical player. And then Pat Freiermuth, their tight end, is his number 2 target. He takes about a quarter of his snaps in the slot, and he lines up in line. So it's not dissimilar to how the Eagles utilize Dallas Goedert, how they will move him around. But he's going to hit Freiermuth underneath and those crossing routes a lot. He's going to throw a lot of vertical balls to George Pickens, and those are the 2 biggest things the Eagles are going to have to watch out for. So like you said, with TJ Edwards, big game for TJ Edwards on Najee Harris. Also a big game for TJ Edwards, Kazir White. There's a nice diving pass breakup by Darius Slay in our simulation. But big game for White and for Edwards covering Pat Freiermuth.
Yep. Yeah, Freiermuth is going to get a lot of targets, so Eagles got to be ready for that one.
All right. Anything else? Anything anybody wants to say about the Steelers' offense before we move on to the defense here?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Last thing I'll throw out here on the offense is this. Since week 4, which is when Kenny Pickett became the starter, the Steelers ranked 23rd in dropback EPA and 28th in rushing EPA. So they have seen a boost since Pickett became the starter. They're still a bottom-tier offense. This is a bottom-tier offense going up against a top-tier defense. This should be a game that you walk out feeling good about the Eagles' defense. So let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball for the Steelers, the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles. I about confused myself, but let's talk about some of the matchups there. Dives, what's your first matchup to watch? Eagles offense against the Steelers defense.
I mean, obviously it starts with Jalen Hurts versus who? Not more so the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush. You look at this pass rush for the Steelers. They had 0 sacks against Miami last Sunday. They only had 1 quarterback hit. They did do a really good job against Miami on 3rd downs. They held them to 4-14. But this isn't like the Steelers defense of old that I'm used to watching. Like, this is a Steelers defense that has come up empty with getting to the quarterback. And the Steelers had the 4th worst pressure percentage at 13% in the NFL. It's worth noting the Steelers defense does do a really good job of getting takeaways. They've got 8 interceptions, including 3 from Minka Fitzpatrick. So there's definitely something there. The problem is they give the ball away a ton as well. So I think they have 12 giveaways. So they're not anywhere near the top, takeaway leaders here. But this is an area that I keep waiting for Jalen Hurts to test it on. And overall, the Eagles offense has seen a ton of light boxes this year, which shocks me, quite frankly. You look at Jalen Hurts against the blitz this year. He's only got a 52% completion percentage. He's got 0 touchdowns. He's got 1 interception. The Eagles have 8 sacks against pressures, and they've given up 33 pressures, which is the 2nd most when blitzed. So those are all answers or question marks that I have for Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense, but it ain't coming this week because the Steelers can't get home. TJ Watt is not going to play, I don't think, until after the bye week, which is, I think, next 2 weeks from now. So Jalen Hurts should have a fairly easy game here against Pittsburgh. So are you shocked at all about that, Shane? Because I'm shocked that Jalen Hurts doesn't get pressured more, frankly.
That Hurts doesn't get pressured more?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers are an entirely different team when TJ Watt is out. Like it affects everything, the way they scheme their defense, everything else. So TJ Watt being out, he's the heart and soul of the defense. That kills what the Steelers want to do. I will say that they are a pretty aggressive team. They have the 6th highest man coverage rate, so they love to man guys up. I just don't know how you do that against the Eagles. It's so hard to play man coverage when you have a mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts that can get, if he escapes the pocket and you're in man coverage, nobody has eyes on him. It's a big play waiting to happen. And then even if you take that away, how do you man cover Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown. Like, there's favorable matchups all over the field. And so I think it's an advantageous matchup for the Eagles offense. Now, the Steelers do have a pretty good run defense. They're 4th in the league in yards per carry allowed at 4.1%. But what Miami did to them, I just watched the Miami game today because my daughter was homesick and she loves football, so we sat on the couch and I watched Steelers Dolphins film, and she loved it, and I was getting ready for a podcast. But what Miami did to them a lot is they attacked them with quick throws, they utilized play action, and they used a lot of RPOs. And the Steelers were backed off of the line because of the speed of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Now, the Eagles don't have Waddle and Hill. They've got Quez Watkins, who's fast. He's not the player that either of those guys are. But they do have, A.J. Brown. He's not lightning speed like that, but if you want to go press him without help over the top, the Eagles have shown that they'll take those 9 balls down the sideline. So I think you could see a similar style of defense from the Steelers this week. And Miami just laid out the blueprint for the Eagles, what you want to do. And obviously they fell off, after their opening script. But their opening script was great. And the Eagles are good at all of those things. They're good at RPOs. They're good at play action. I would basically do the exact same thing that the Dolphins did.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a comment coming in here. It says, "Fly, Eagles, fly." I'm all about those type of comments. We will get those up on the screen. So, Ryan, talk to me about the Eagles offense. What are you expecting to see on Sunday?
I'm expected to see a continued rushing attack, kind of like we were talking about before, balanced attack, and then hopefully cruising in the end in the fourth quarter, eating up clock. I'm still waiting for Dallas Goedert to have his really big game, over 100 yards, maybe a couple touchdowns, something. It'd be great. I mean, I'm just hoping and wishing. I actually don't have him on any fantasy football teams, so that's just pure fandom. And then kind of looking to see how, if I'm not mistaken, Alex Highsmith is, having a great year so far for the Steelers. So just kind of how the Eagles are going to handle him. He's got 6.5 sacks this year. So just kind of watching out for him. But if I'm just going to name one guy, then I guess their defense really isn't that intimidating if I'm pointing out a linebacker and kind of worried about him. So overall, again, I think this should be a game where the Eagles cruise, firing on all cylinders. So I really am looking for a big game overall, high scoring for the Eagles, low scoring for the Steelers, just a blowout.
I want to see that passing attack get on the right track here, because outside of Fitzpatrick, the Steelers secondary, they're a bunch of veterans, bunch of CB2s, guys that Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown should be looking at us to go up against here on Sunday. So I look for another big game, more big games from Devontae and A.J. Brown. Get that ball downfield. Jalen Hurts hasn't been lighting it up in the middle area of the field. That's still an area that he needs to get better and improve. And I'm not saying he hasn't. It is better, but it's not great. But I want to see more of that. And I think you can do that against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Minka, like you said, Minka Fitzpatrick, Levi Wallace. I was a big Levi Wallace fan when he went to the Steelers. I thought that was a great signing. I think he's played decent this year. He's not a slouch, but again, he's like you said, he's a CB2, and the Eagles kind of have 2 wide receiver ones, so I think they can pick their matchups. Here's what I want. I want the Eagles to just full out commit to the bit, continue scoring all of their points in the second quarter. Let's put 35 on Pittsburgh, but 30 of them, let's make it all in the second quarter. I'm a big fan of that.
I'm 100%. I'm not. Yeah, the Eagles are going to have to become a more balanced team. It'll happen when it happens, but I'm for it, man. I'm one of those guys that I'm not the biggest person concerned about the lack of offense in the second half. It's a concern. I'm not saying it's not, but the way this team has rolled in those second quarters, man, I would love another like 24-3 lead heading into the half type of game here against Pittsburgh, man. I would love it. Makes my anxiety level just end the weekend all the better.
Yeah.
Yep, Madden just heard me say that, so of course the Eagles scored a touchdown in the third quarter. So
Wait, that doesn't happen.
Madden, notably not realistic, as the Eagles score a point in the third quarter.
Yeah, that does not happen.
Yeah. So the defense for the Steelers, I'll give you they're 22nd in EPA per play allowed. They're 19th in dropback EPA and 20th in rushing EPA. So again, it's a mediocre, it's a slightly below average defense, and it's pretty much the same whether you're running or passing. They're slightly better against the run than the pass, in my opinion. But as I said, I think the Eagles should be able to do what they want to. And then, the biggest thing for me with the Eagles is you want to put this game away early. It'd be fantastic if you could get some of your key guys out in the fourth quarter leading up to a Thursday night game. But the biggest thing is don't make this game one where you have to sweat it out at the end and get out of it injury free to head on to a Thursday night game against Houston.
Yeah.
Here's the craziest stat through the first 6 games. The Eagles are actually throwing the ball less this year than they did last year. Do you have any reaction to that, Shane?
Yeah, that seems about right. They were so pass heavy at the start of last year.
That's true. That first few games they were, yeah.
And when you factor in, especially like the Jags game that was really run heavy because of the rain, yeah, I could see that. That kind of jives for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, well, let's get into score predictions then. Ryan, lead us off. What's your score prediction? Who wins this game? What's the final score?
Final score will be 35-14 Eagles.
All right, 35-14 Eagles. Dibes, what do you have?
Everything in that points to at least a win by 2 scores here. So that on the flip side, then I'm a little more worried. I will say Eagles get the W here, 31-17, 31-17, and 7-0. 7-0, man. It's an unbelievable thing. It's I guess the question now is like how far how deep does this run continue for the Philadelphia Eagles, man? I don't see the Steelers having any matchup in their favor against this one, and I think the Eagles cruise.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Eagles' schedule, right? They play Pittsburgh, then they go on the road on a short week. They play Houston, at home against Miami on Monday Night Football, at home against Washington on Monday Night Football, and then at Indianapolis, who just benched Matt Ryan, so they'll face Sam Ehlinger. And then that's week 11. That's 4 games. Like, the Eagles should win all 4 of those games easily. Like, the Eagles should be 10-0 with that game against Green Bay that suddenly doesn't look so scary. The Eagles, they're not going to go undefeated. They're going to be favored in every game, though. They're going to be favored in every game going the rest of the way. And I am expecting the Eagles to get to 10-0. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win this one. I thought you scared me for a second because 31 is my Eagles score. I was 31-13, and I just knew you were about to take my exact score. But I've got Eagles 31, Steelers 13. I think they're going to be able to do kind of whatever they want to the Steelers' offense. It's not going to turn into like some huge blowout because we know how the Eagles play with the lead in the second half. They're going to kill the clock. And I think Kenny Pickett is going to have a rough day against this Eagles pass rush and the Eagles secondary. So 31-13, Eagles roll.
I guess I'm going to show my age on this one, but like I look at this schedule as I am now, like I can't help think like who is the Joe Webb that's going to like shock the world and like have a great game against the Eagles. You know what I mean? Like Joe Webb, I think it was with the Minnesota Vikings, like put together a terrific performance in the Eagles in a game where everything went wrong. I'm kind of interested, Shane, what your thoughts are. Like, could we possibly see Malik Willis December 4th for the Titans? Is that possible?
It's possible. I really hope not. I would much rather face Ryan Tannehill.
I know.
But yeah, I think it depends on where the Titans are at. Honestly, right now it looks like the Titans they're going to start to pull away in that division. The Colts, I think the Colts are done. The Jaguars, they continue to just lose these coin flip games, and they're falling out of it. The Texans have never been in it. So as long as the Titans are in a division that week, I think you probably are going to see them stick with Tannehill. I don't know what just happened to my...
I personally think that Tennessee game would be, I'm kind of like looking ahead, but I think that might be a loss for the Eagles when it comes to that time. Yeah, I think so. Plus, Derrick Henry is really starting to pick it up and find his groove again, so he's scary. Very scary.
I hate to look ahead, too. I'm already looking at that January 1st, New Year's Day game against the Saints in Philly. And Clinton, could they possibly be clinching like a top 5 pick or so with a win that game? I hate to look ahead. I need to stop doing that. I need to focus on the Steelers here.
That's hilarious because, it's really funny that if the Eagles are doing so well that they've locked it up by the time it comes to that New Orleans game, like how do they, like you obviously want to beat them, but you obviously don't want to get anybody hurt for the playoffs that you're definitely going to make if you have it locked up. So I don't know. That is very interesting.
If you've got everything locked up at that point, it means you probably have the 1 seed locked up and you're going to get a bye. There's no way you're going to rest your starters the last 2 weeks of the regular season and over a bye. So
that's true.
If anything, you would rest the last week, and that's really about it. Like you might play cautious with injuries, but I don't think that would factor into it, to be honest. We got a few minutes left here in our sim. The Eagles are clinging to a lead right here, 17-14, with 4:44 remaining in the game. But we've got a couple of minutes here. Let's talk trade deadline. The trade deadline is coming up. It is November 1st, and so I think that next Tuesday? I can't remember. But
yes.
It's coming up soon here. I don't know what's going on with the screen jumping around here, but it's coming up next Tuesday. What positions would you guys like to see the Eagles address? Are they good? If the Eagles were to make a move here, what would you want them to do?
I mean, me personally, that's tough. Probably what I would like to see is some kind of addition at running back that, could propel us to that next level of rushing attack. Honestly, I'm not really sure what else. I would love to defer to you guys for that.
I was so sad to see James Robinson get moved for a 6th round pick. Like, I would have easily given that up to go get him from the Jaguars, personally. Yeah. But
yeah, like I look at running back and like, have you seen their 3rd and short numbers? The Eagles' 3rd and short numbers are ridiculously good. Most of that's Jalen Hurts, and that kind of like lessens the need just a little bit, especially with their success on 4th downs. Like they're so good at it. They're so absurdly good at it that like that need kind of goes down. I still look at safety. If the Eagles can, bring in some sort of safety like Jeremy Chin, or if he's available, I don't even know. But I think Marcus Epps has played really well. I think fortifying the defense is probably the avenue I would go down. Looking to get another pass rusher, looking to get a safety in there. That would be probably my best guess.
My biggest thing, I would like to see the Eagles get a safety. I don't know who that is, but if they could get a safety, it would help. I mean, Kevon Wallace does not ever need to step on the Eagles football field again. He was atrocious when he came in for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that's the place they can least afford to sustain an injury. I would also like getting a safety from the perspective that if Avonte Maddox got hurt, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has the ability to go down into the slot, and you could put that safety in. So I would like to see a safety. I don't know who that is. I would also like to see him get a tight end, and I know exactly who I want. I want to go get Albert O from the Broncos. The Eagles like to run 12 personnel, and right now they're really limited in that Jack Stoll is not a receiver at all. And Grant Calcaterra cannot line up in line. He's only a receiver. And so you're tipping your hand if you go 12 personnel based on who is in there. Albert O's not playing in Denver right now. He was inactive last week, I believe. Should be a cheap get. And he can do a little – he's not some elite player, but he can do a little bit of both. So I would love to see him go take a flyer on, like, Albert O and maybe get, like, a safety. But really, I think the roster's pretty good. It's kind of nitpicking just some places you would like better depth.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm not terribly concerned about running back. I mean, if Miles Sanders went down, that would be unfortunate. But the Eagles have such a good offensive line, and Jalen Hurts' legs are such a big part of their rushing attack. It does feel a little bit like one of those anybody could run in this offense. Not to mitigate what Miles Sanders has done this year, but he's got the easiest job in the NFL. And like his rushing yards over expectation aren't anything crazy. To be honest, he's been average this year. He just looked really good because of the scheme and the line. So, but if I was going to get a running back, I would love to see him go get a running back that can pass protect. They just don't have that, and I think it's a huge part of their woes against the blitz. So if they had, and that's one of the reasons I like James Robinson. He can step up and he can hit a guy in pass protection. So that's what I would like to see if they went after a running back.
And I'm gonna say it early, and I don't care, but I have really high. Look at Jalen Hurts just get demolished there. What are you doing, man? Just get down. But the running back class for the 2023 NFL draft is extremely talented this year. I don't know what the Eagles are going to do in the first round, but there's going to be a lot of really strong day two guys available. Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama, if he's there, that is a run to the podium draft pick for the Eagles. He would be a great fit for the Eagles. Zach Evans out of TCU, great speed. Sean Tucker out of Syracuse. Blake Corum, he's only 5'8", Blake Corum, but he's built like he's a strong dude.
Michigan,
out of Michigan, man, a big time home run hitter out of the backfield. So I'm really hoping the Eagles kind of pump the brakes a little bit on the running back thing, and get their guy for the future in next year's draft, because value-wise, that's where it's at, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into contract stuff as we get down to the year, but I don't expect the Eagles to pay Miles Sanders, so I do think that's probably a move they look to make in the offseason. So it looks like the Eagles will win the game here as they go into my favorite formation, the victory formation. Or is it a QB sneak? You can't tell anymore, but they're going to kneel it out. They will win the Madden Sim 17-14 as the clock ticks down to 0. A closer game than any of us have predicted for this Sunday. We had another comment coming in, says that could see the Eagles coming back sloppy on Sunday. So maybe Madden is taking that into account coming off the bye. But the Eagles win the Madden Sim. I believe the Eagles are undefeated in our Madden Sims, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Or they might have lost one. I can't remember, but it's a pretty good track record so far. So that's going to about wrap it up here for our Eagles-Steelers preview. We will be back next week, and we'll have more of a review and a preview element since the Eagles won't be coming off of a bye week. Maybe Tuesday is trade deadline. Maybe we'll have a trade acquisition to talk about. But before we get out of here, Ryan, give us any final thoughts. Plug your stuff. Where can the people find you?
I'm on Philly Sports Alliance. You can find me on the Philly Broadcast with Ryan Reese, who also is on this show from time to time. We go live Tuesdays at 7. Didn't have a show today, but usually Tuesdays at 7. And then you can find me here quite a bit, actually, on the Roundtable. So thank you guys again for having me. And go Phillies, go Birds.
All right. Dibes, what about you? Give us any final thoughts. Tell the people where they can find you.
Phil doing a great job of making me forget or not pay enough attention to the woes of the Sixers. There's a lot of issues there. We didn't do a post game yesterday because I was sick, but we will be doing a post game tomorrow night against the Toronto Raptors. Right when the clock hits 0, we'll break it down. That's basically it. Second half of the year, man. Here comes the grind. You can expect all the highlight reels and content you could ever want here. So I'm excited. I'm just blown away. Whether it's the Phillies or the Eagles, just this entire month has been like walking on clouds. I can't explain it. This doesn't happen to Philly sports fans, man. This just does not happen. So just thank you to the Eagles. Thank you to the Phillies, and go Phillies here on Friday. I cannot wait.
Well,
All right.
awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I need to catch my breath now because Friday the new Call of Duty game drops. So I'm really excited about that. Saturday is the semifinals and finals of Red Bull Wololo 6, which is the biggest Age of Empires 2 tournament of the year. So I'm all into that. Then I got Eagles game on Sunday, and then the Eagles turn around on the short week and play the Texans on Thursday. And I have no idea how I'm going to get everything done I need to with all the video games I'm going to want to check out and play as well. So I may have to maybe next week on Tuesday night, we might just have to be live with me playing Call of Duty while you guys talk about the game, and I'll just interject every once in a while. I don't know.
I do want to add, I have started my mid-season rankings for college football in the NFL draft. I'm doing it a little bit differently than last year. Last year, I waited to the Senior Bowl, then did my rankings. This year, I'm going to do my rankings. I already did a preseason rankings, and I've watched so much college football that I'm pretty confident I can at least get the major positions of need for the Eagles done before the Senior Bowl, and then a couple months in after the combine and stuff, I'll have my final rankings. So I'm already started on all my rank, especially as we touched on running back. So edge rusher, cornerback. There's a lot of positions in next year's draft that are going to really fill the Eagles' needs really well.
All right.
That's awesome.
Well, that is going to about do it for us here. Thank you for joining us on another episode, our first non-Victory Tuesday episode of Birds of the Roundtable, coming off of that bye week, but we're getting you ready for this week's victory over the Steelers. We will see you guys back here next week for another Victory Tuesday celebration, hopefully as the Eagles move to 7-0. We will break it all down. Make sure you're following these guys on social media. Follow Philly Sports Alliance on YouTube. Follow the Painted Lions. We've got you covered for draft stuff, Phillies, Sixers, and of course the most important, it's the Eagles. So thank you to those of you that joined in on the comments here. Those of you watching on YouTube later, we hope to catch you on a live show maybe next week. From me, from Dives, from Ryan, the Painted Lines, Philly Sports Alliance. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you guys on Tuesday.